We're here with Dan Bongino. Great new hit book, and you really ought to get it. Life Inside the Bubble, Why Top-Ranked Secret Service Agent Walked Away from It All. You can get it on Amazon, any major bookstore. You can go on my social sites. We put it up there. He's also running for Congress, and we can use him in Congress. This is an all-around good guy. Before I get back to your book, you're a big UFC guy, right, Dan?
Oh, I love it. Matter of fact, every time you have Sonnen on or Dana White, I always turn it up a few notches. I was talking to Mr. Producer here. I love your Dana White interview. It was terrific.
Well, it's obvious he's busy. He's trying to do 3 interviews at once. He's being yanked over here and yanked over there.
I just said that. Yeah. We must be having some ESP mind link. I was just telling that we were talking in the other room, and I was saying the interview was so great because you had asked him for some number, and he was like, hey, whatever, Tony, can you get me a number? I'm on the phone here. Yeah, it was a terrific, great job on that interview.
Well, he's really a good interview, and of course, Chael Sonnen and I become buddies.
Yeah, I hear him all the time. He's a tough guy. He'll come back. You can, unlike boxing, you can take a few losses and turn it around. So it's just tough to stay healthy. I know. Believe me, I've been beat up pretty bad.
I hate to say this, that George St. Pierre lost on Saturday. Did you see that fight?
Yeah, but we were talking inside, and here's my take. I agree, he lost, but my take on it is when you're in the ring with the champ, you have to beat the champ, Mark, convincingly. I'm not saying the decision was right. Hendricks is a beast. I mean, Pierre looked like he get hit with a wrecking ball. But, you're going to take on the champ like Matt Serra. That's who I train with. He's the only one to knock St. Pierre out. He knocked him out. I mean, he won convincingly. So, in a way, you got to take him out if you're going to take him out.
Now, you fought? You were a fighter?
Yeah, I finished the only tournament I fought in was at 93. I finished 2nd out of 10, but it used to be tournament style. So it's not like today everybody gets off easy now, Mark.
Oh my God!
Yeah, you go in the ring for 15 minutes and you wrap it up and you go have your muscle milk or whatever afterwards. Back then it was tournament style. I had a fight 4 times. So, yeah, I got kicked in the face. I chipped a tooth, but I finished 2nd, so,
That's big.
Yeah, I was proud of it. That was the old days when...
wow, you're almost in the days where they didn't wear gloves. You go back so far.
Oh, yeah, there were no gloves. Yeah, it was all... The gloves don't... They make it worse because that just encourages people to punch you harder.
Now, you were able to observe a lot. Yeah. Secret Service. You were protecting the President of the United States. What do you make of this Benghazi thing? Is it the scandal we all think it is?
It's worse, Mark. It's a human tragedy. Having been overseas, and I don't want to wax melodramatic here, but having been a Secret Service agent, I walked out of my house to my crying, at the time, 6- and 7-year-old daughter, Isabel, when she was on the, when I was on the detail. But, Mark, I would always say it's going to be okay, and I meant it. I mean, I really thought the cavalry would show up. I mean, I was in Afghanistan with the president, in Indonesia, under a myriad of threats at the time. I never, in 1,000 years, would have thought that if we had an A to Z security plan, that B would never show up. And the FEST team, that Foreign Emergency Support Team, that did not show up to save these guys over a 7-hour fight when this guy was brutally killed, our ambassador, and Sean Smith, and those 2 heroic SEALs. I mean, it's tough for me to even talk about because it brings back really bad memories, and I can't imagine if something broke bad on my end, and I just sat there screaming in the radio calling for help, and not one person answered. It's a national tragedy, and it's worse than I think people know.
What do you think happened? What would you surmise?
It was an insider attack planned for months. My take on it is the administration didn't want to admit that Libya was a failed mess. They couldn't. It was a foreign policy success right before the election. They knew there was a foreign policy debate coming up. He had just gotten destroyed on the first debate by Romney because he had nothing to stand on. So they could not. They had to find a scapegoat when this happened. They tried this ridiculous meme about the video, which was, basically laughed out now, but back then was accepted by... a collaborative media that just wanted to propagate this Aesop's fable. But I really believe that they just said, have them stand down because they had just memories of Black Hawk Down and thought, well, if we get stuck over there, then, we're going to have to tell a story about how Libya failed. But they never, I mean, can you imagine listening to the cries for help?
No, I couldn't.
No, it's the horror. Now these tapes are apparently out there, and there was a drone that was overhead. There's video, too, but it was there about 90 minutes after the attack started.
Dan Bongino, people can attack Reagan for Iran-Contra all they want, but one of the things that drove him when he was getting reports back how Buckley our CIA head, and they figured out he was the CIA guy, was being brutally tortured. It was so upsetting to him, so infuriating to him. He wanted to get him out of there. Yeah. And so people can question the judgment and so forth and so on, but he did not want to leave these guys behind.
Mark, that Buckley story, by the way, is one of the most horrible, horrible stories. I mean, they tortured that poor guy for months. They kept him alive. In the video, he's just completely incoherent. They broke him mentally, and I can't imagine the pain as the President of the United States, if you were really deeply emotionally involved with our troops, that you could watch that. That story, it's interesting you brought that up, because that was one of my nightmares every time, was being kidnapped. We spent a lot of time overseas. You know, I have kids. It's not always about you, so it's about my daughters having to watch a video like that, God forbid.
You also make a point, these things like Fast and Furious and the Boston bombing and so forth, while we can never be perfect, while we can't stop everything, while we do some very bad things, you're saying, look, the bureaucracy is killing us.
Yeah. Mark, the administrative state is so out of control that I want people to understand that there are very real life-or-death consequences to this. You know, you speak about it eloquently all the time, how the administrative state is almost more dangerous than elected officials. Hey, listen, every 2 years you get the chance to boot out your member of Congress if you don't like them. You have bureaucrats right now effectively legislating. You have them in the EPA bankrupting entire generations of coal miners, now trying to attack waterways. You're going to have a stream in your backyard. You're going to have a bureaucrat telling you can't dig a ditch in your own backyard now. There's nothing you can do. You know, Mark, the audience, I think, they have to remember this. There's no power in government. There's no power in yes. There is only power in telling you no. If the EPA shows up and says, yes, you can do this, yes, you can do that, then you've effectively neutered them of their power. They relish this. This bureaucratic state loves their power. It grows. It's like the Green Lantern, having their little lantern next to them. They love to tell you no, and this administrative state is literally killing us. I mean, look at what happened in Boston. How did we miss that? Well, I talk about it in the book, and very practically how we missed it. Because we have these siloed agencies all defending their own turf who never talk to each other. I wasn't surprised at all. It's really sad.
As you know, as everybody knows, this is the 50th anniversary of the horrific assassination of President Kennedy. I'm sure, there have been a lot of changes in security with the Secret Service. Not that that was their fault, don't get me wrong, don't misunderstand me, but I'm saying the challenges are different, you learn different things as time goes on. I mean, without revealing secrets and so forth, I assume there's been a lot of changes since then.
Yeah, a ton. I mean, that was the Secret Service's 9/11. You know, 9/11 for the intel community, there's pre-9/11, post-9/11. Almost nothing is the same the way they handle it. That, for us, was a cultural shift for the Secret Service, a strategic shift, and a tactical shift. You know, in a nutshell, with strategy, we allocated a lot more people from our criminal activities into presidential protection. Tactically, we totally revamped our motorcade security system. I did motorcades. I was in the transportation section twice. You know, everything we looked at, the counter-sniper program started as a result of that. The ability to now not only look for snipers, but to counteract them effectively. So, and even the cultural shift. Remember, that was the first assassination caught on camera for America to see. So what the Secret Service saw, all of America did. That wasn't the case with McKinley or, well, Garfield. There weren't even cameras. But, you know, Lincoln, nobody saw that. Everybody saw it. I think the culture in the Secret Service after that was, wow, guys, we blew it, and this is what happens. So it was tough.
Does the Secret Service change under administrations? In other words, the director sets the environment, the mindset for everybody else, or is it pretty much just roll along from administration to administration?
No, there are, you know, one thing I always liked about them for my 12 years there, I mean, I really enjoyed the job, is they're not, unlike a lot of federal agencies that, you know, we don't do anything wrong, we did it this way, and this is the way it gets done. The one thing about them I always enjoyed is when they screw something up, they really hotwash it. They get it, they dig through it, and they figure out. Like, I'll give you an example, the Reagan shooting at the Hinckley Hilton. You know, they said, well, why are we doing these open arrivals? Meaning when Reagan walked out and was waving, everybody knows he's going into the limo. So if everybody knows, then that element of surprise is gone. So we never did that anymore. We do now covered arrivals where the limo goes into a tent. You can't shoot where you can't see. And they do that with everything. We do it after each trip. They'd have these things called these helpful hints where even little things like, hey, don't put this stuff here because the president will trip over it. And they get better and better each time. And I always appreciated that about them. They're a very proactive agency.
That Reagan assassination attempt, I was actually, not that it matters, I was actually I was 2 blocks from the White House. I was working off of Lafayette Park when I was working for the president, and I heard those sirens. I thought it was World War III.
No kidding. What was that like? What did you do? Did you go to the White House?
No, I said, what the hell's going on? Well, we didn't know. I said, just going siren after siren after siren. It was deafening. I said, what the hell? Something's wrong. Yeah. Well, something was wrong. You know, we turned on the TV, we found out the President of the United States, you know, my boss had been shot. Little did we know that bullet lodged, you know, as close to his heart as you can imagine. But, well, that's good to know. And you know, the Secret Service, you know, it's come under a lot of attack lately because some of these events going on and so forth. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, there's always bad seeds, and it's not to excuse it. I mean, we're all fallible human beings, but, you know, they always have that expression in, you know, medical school, what do you call the guy who graduates last? Doctor. You know, there's always going to be a couple of things, but, you know, I knew a lot of these guys, and, you know, some of them were good guys that made bad calls. I mean, you know, we grew up hard, Mark. I made a lot of bad calls in my life, and the problem with the Secret Service, and I think what they have to understand, the guys is, you know, it's going to be a national story no matter what. You know, you're in front of the president, and let's hope it doesn't happen again.
Well, I want the audience, folks, I want you to know there's this and lots more in his book, Life Inside the Bubble, Why a Top-Ranked Secret Service Agent Walked Away from It All. Not only that, Dan Bongino is going to be a national something or other one day. I'm telling you that right now, Dan, you are.
Hey,
you're in
Mark,
a tough state right now, but something big's going to happen for you because you're like you've got all the attributes you need to be a great leader.
Well, Mr. Producer can attest to it. I got a huge Kool-Aid smile on my face. You've been a hero of mine for a long time. You have no idea how much you changed my life, so I'll tell you sometime. I'll tell you the real story.
Well, it's a great honor, Dan. And audience, I hope you'll get this book. It's the perfect book for the holiday. Life Inside the Bubble, Why a Top-Ranked Secret Service Agent Walked Away from It All. You heard him, Dan Bongino. God bless you, my friend. Take care of yourself, okay?
Thanks, great one. Talk to you soon.
All right.